All right, I guess we're going to talk about this BYU quarterback situation. Jake Retzlaff, affectionately referred to as the BY Jew last year. And no, that's not a slur. He actually said he prefers being called that. So if you're somebody other than Jake Retzlaff and you're mad that myself or anyone else refers to him as the BY Jew, I don't care. It doesn't bother him. He likes it. So if you choose to get upset or offended, that's on you. But we're going to talk about this situation with him. Now, it's interesting in a couple of different ways. This is a problem for BYU. This is a football problem for BYU. Now, maybe in the grand scheme of things, that's not nearly as important as sort of the situation that's going on. But this is a football channel. We can't ignore the football aspect of this here. I mean, BYU was a good team last year. We can argue over what the word good means as compared to great or elite or whatever. Were they going to win a natty if they got in the play? We ain't talk about all that. But I mean, they were 11-2 in a Power 4 conference, the Big 12. But I think the Big 12 is the third best conference last year ahead of the ACC. But anyway, and you remember they were 7-0, 8-0. Was it 9-0? I know they got into November undefeated and ranked in the top 10, and then they lost 2 of their last 3 or 4 games, whatever it was. They lost 2 games in the month of November. But heading into November, BYU was penciled in as a playoff team. I mean, they were atop the Big 12 standings. Everyone sort of assumed at that point they were going to go on to win the Big 12 championship. That was before Arizona State took off. If you remember, Arizona State had sort of the opposite of BYU last year. Arizona State had lost a couple of games early in the year. They were picked to finish dead last in the league. So when they lost a couple of games, everybody just kind of said, oh, well, that's it for them, and kind of didn't really pay that much of attention to them. Until BYU lost those 2 games in November. And then all of a sudden there was like 6 teams over the last 2 weeks of the regular season in the Big 12 that had a shot of getting into the Big 12 title game. BYU lost 2 games, didn't get in. Arizona State won out. They won like their last 6 or 7 games in a row, whatever it was, made it into the Big 12 title game, and then won the Big 12 title game to get into the playoffs. And BYU kind of floated off into the wilderness before beating the ever-living soul and will to live out of Colorado in a bowl game. But they finished 11-2 with this quarterback, Jake Retzlaff. And it was a big deal when he decided he was going to come back, because there was some talk that he might have played himself onto some NFL draft boards last season. And now they've spent all offseason, including all of spring practice and summer workouts so far and all of that, sort of preparing this guy to again be the starting quarterback. They've got multiple backups like every team does, but starting reps are very valuable in when it comes to college practices, because you don't get very many practices. It's so regulated in terms of how many practices you can actually have. They've been spending all this time preparing this guy to be the quarterback for this season, and now it looks like apparently that's not going to be the case, but not necessarily for the reason you would have thought when this story first came out. And that kind of gets us to where we're at now with this story. Now, I'm going to read some of the article here because I don't want to get, this stuff is obviously alleged, okay? And I might not say the word alleged enough if I just talk about it on my own. So I'm going to kind of read from this article here from ESPN. It kind of lays out what has happened, and then I'm going to give you my sort of, summary of it, my thoughts on it, and then we'll go forward. But I don't want to use the word funny here, because there's nothing funny about rape or sexual assault or anything like that. There's nothing funny even about the accusation of it. So I don't want to use that word, but this story becomes interesting to me for reasons specific, I guess, to BYU that we'll get into. But so here we go here. So a civil lawsuit, not a criminal now, but a civil lawsuit accusing BYU quarterback of rape has been dismissed, according to court records. And it circles back around. We'll tell you how we got to a civil lawsuit instead of a criminal here. But the parties jointly agreed to dismiss the lawsuit, ending the case, which was filed last month. None of the parties were immediately available for comment. Now, the quarterback, Retzlaff, plans to enter the transfer portal. He wants to, or not the portal's not open, but he wants to transfer. He's a grad student. Now, look, these portal rules have changed so much, and transfer rules have changed so much over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know what's up and what's down anymore. Apparently, because he's a graduate student, he can transfer. He doesn't need any type of portal or time limit, or like he can just transfer anywhere he wants, I guess. I guess. I don't know. But the reason he's transferring is because he's facing a 7-game suspension, not from the NCAA or any type of, criminal deal or whatever, from BYU itself for violating the school's honor code. And we're going to get into that in a second. I've got their honor code pulled up. We're going to look at it in a second. That's where it gets interesting to me. I don't want to use the word funny, so we'll say interesting. Because he admitted to premarital sex. So here's what happened. 2 years ago, this is crazy. This all happened 2 years ago in 2023. Retzlaff and this girl meet online. The girl and a bunch of her friends go over to Retzlaff's apartment or house. There's some other BYU students and athletes there. This girl comes over with her friends, becomes like a group hangout thing, okay? They're hanging out, doing whatever it is college kids do. They're hanging out. Everyone leaves except for Retzlaff and this girl that he met online, came over with her friends. All her friends leave, all his friends leave, so it's just the two of them. They're on the couch watching a movie. They both agree on all of this. None of this is in dispute. They then start kissing on the couch. And this is where one side has one story and one has the other, right? And so alleged. They start kissing. The girl decides that's all she wants to do. She doesn't want it to go any further. Retzlaff decides he does want it to go further. She tells him no. She tells him to stop. She tells him she doesn't want to do it. He doesn't listen. She accuses him of choking her at one point and biting her and basically raping her. Now, this is in 2023. She doesn't immediately call the police. She leaves and goes home. 2 days later, she checks herself into the hospital, telling the hospital workers that she was raped and she wants an examination, I guess a rape kit, I guess they call it. And they do that. And the police are called. The police come. And she refuses to identify who it was that did it. She doesn't name Jake Retzlaff. She doesn't give any name at all. And that's sort of the end of it, because the police are like, well, if you know who did it, but aren't going to tell us who did it, there's not really anything for us to investigate. If you get ready to tell us who did it, you let us know. This was all in 2023. Now you fast forward to sort of more recently, she files a civil lawsuit against him, kind of out of the blue, because this was 2 years ago. 2025, she decides this happened in May. She files a civil lawsuit against him in May. The difference is between a civil lawsuit and a criminal lawsuit. A criminal lawsuit is filed by the state, right? The state's attorney's office, and they're charged with rape and all that, right? And if you're found guilty, there are criminal punishments, fines, imprisonment, whatever the case may be. In a civil lawsuit, there's no, you could get found guilty 100 times in a civil lawsuit. You're never going to jail. It's monetary, it's financial. You're ordered to pay X amount of dollars based on whatever civil wrongdoing it was that was done to you. In this case, alleged rape and sexual assault, right? So 2 years after it happens, she decides to sue him civilly for money. Now he comes out and says, this ain't right. I didn't do this. It was consensual. This was 2 years ago. And he then tells his whole story. The story we now know about them, her coming over, watching the movie on the couch, the kissing. She says she told him to stop. He says that never happened. It was purely consensual. He tells that story and he goes, basically, I was really good last year. The NFL is starting to pay attention to me and she thinks she can extort me for money. Now, none of us probably will ever know kind of the real story of what happened here. There's some obvious red flags in my opinion, but I can't put myself inside the mind of somebody who may actually have been assaulted or raped. So it seems like red flag behavior to me from her, but I don't know. I don't know what is the right thing to do there or the wrong thing. So I'm not saying she made it up, but there are some red flags here. Number one, she doesn't go to the hospital for 2 days. When she does, she refuses to say what happened or who did it. 2 years later, seemingly out of the blue, she files the civil suit against him after he's had a really good season, a lot of notoriety, and looks like potentially going to be a multimillionaire whenever he gets drafted into the NFL. I mean, even if he's a third or fourth round pick, you're talking about a lot of money here, right? So it does look suspicious on her part to me. Again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I don't know. The only people that know are her and him. He denies it. She says it happened. It was 2 years ago. It's kind of late to investigate it now if you're the police. So they say there are no charges. He hasn't been and isn't going to be charged with anything at all. But there's this civil suit. Well, now the civil suit has been dismissed. The parties jointly agreed to dismiss the suit, which means they may have come to some sort of settlement between them privately outside of the civil case. Maybe he's agreed to pay her some money. A lot of times, there's NDAs signed. You're not allowed to talk about it. So we may never know what happened there. But the interesting thing to me is that he hasn't even been ever charged with a crime here. Never even charged by the police with a crime. The civil suit never even went to court. He wasn't found guilty in any type of civil suit. The case was dismissed. Again, why, we don't know. Settlement or not, we don't know. But yet still, the school is going to suspend him for 7 games because he violated the honor code. Now, you're thinking, well, every school's got an honor code, and you're not allowed to rape people. That's part of the honor code. You can't rape people. Yeah, that's kind of a given. That's not why he's being suspended. It says right here, Retzlaff now plans to enter or transfer from BYU because he faces a 7-game suspension for violating the school's honor code. Listen to this. By admitting to premarital sex. So the school doesn't even care. Well, I don't want to say they don't care. I'm sure the school cares whether or not he raped her. But in terms of suspending him, whether he raped her or sexually assaulted her is irrelevant to BYU. Just the fact that he admitted to having a sexual relationship with her, premarital sex, that's all they need to know. Suspended 7 games. Honor code violation. How in the hell does BYU get anybody to come there to play football? If they've got to abide by this, and if they don't, it's that serious that they suspend them for 7 games. And look, people are free to have their own religious beliefs, and I don't look down on anybody's religious beliefs when they apply those religious beliefs to themselves. So there's devout Mormons that both go to BYU and on the football team and not on the football team. And if those devout Mormons have made a decision to for no premarital sex and all that for religious reasons, I've got no problem or issue with that at all. I mean, I'm no biblical scholar, but I'm pretty sure every religion has a rule, or it's a sin or whatever, the whole premarital sex thing. Now, I don't want to get into what percentage of religious people actually follow that rule or not. That's irrelevant. They're not under threat of a 7-game suspension, though. If they don't live up to that sort of religious mandate or whatever it is that they have. So I respect anybody that doesn't want to have sex or they get married if that's a decision they make for a religious reason or otherwise. But I don't know how BYU gets anybody to agree to go there and play football if they're going to be this strict about this policy here. This is wild to me. That's just why. I don't know. It's just wild to me. First of all, this guy's not even Mormon. Okay. Now, you don't have to be Mormon to go to BYU. I used to think that you did. And so there might be other people that think that you do too. I know that you have to be a Mormon or sort of, I don't know, what do you call it? Convert to Mormonism or whatever. If you go there, you don't. But you do have to agree to and abide by the BYU honor code, which their honor code is basically guided by the Mormon belief system. And there's a lot of strange things in there about drinking caffeine and what you can wear and what you can't wear that maybe doesn't apply to some other schools. But again, no one forced Retzlaff to go to BYU. Like, it wasn't a surprise to him that this is in the honor code. I guess I kind of question the veracity to which BYU is pursuing this, given, what he was accused of. He basically had no choice, I guess, but to admit to the consensual sex. Because the first thing I thought was, well, why didn't he just say he didn't do it at all? It was 2 years ago. Why didn't he just, if he was worried about getting in trouble with BYU and the honor code, this is 2 years ago. Just say you didn't do it. It's a he said, she said thing. But then I remembered she went to the hospital 2 days after, and they did the whole the rape kit thing. And part of doing that, I guess they collect This is, I don't want to get too graphic here, but I guess they collect evidence from the woman that can then be tied back to an individual. And in this case, I guess that individual was Jake Retzlaff. So he knew he had to admit, he couldn't just say he didn't do it. He's being accused of rape. So he's painted into a corner, really. He has to then come out and say, no, yeah, we did have, I did have sexual relations with that woman. He had to admit it because I guess there's medical evidence, I'm guessing, to back it up from the rape kit that the girl had done 2 days after this incident happened. So he can't just say he didn't do it. So he has to say, well, we did do it, but it was consensual. And then BYU goes, well, that's great that you didn't rape her, but not allowed to have sex. You'd be suspended for 7 games. And Ratliff's sitting around going, well, this is my last year of eligibility. I'm going to sit out 7 of 12 games for having premarital sex with somebody 2 years ago. How old was he 2 years ago? 21, 22 years old? I should have looked it up. In fact, I am going to look it up right now because I'm sick. How old is Jake Retzlaff? He was born in 2003, so he's just turned 25. He was born in March of 2003. So in March of this year, he turned 25. He turned 22. So 2 years ago when this happened, he was 20. The guy's being suspended for having sex in college at the age of 20. This blows my mind. And again, some people in the comments are going to try to turn this into an anti-religion thing. It's not that. If Jake Retzlaff decides he doesn't want to do whatever, eat pork, whatever it is, because his religion tells him he doesn't have to, I think that's great. Don't force that on other people, though. And in BYU's defense, because this isn't all BYU's fault either. Look, if BYU's going to have this honor code, then they probably should apply it equally across the board and not give the star quarterback of the football team preferential treatment, right? That would probably make people more mad. Oh, you've got this honor code and some regular student's got to walk around, with a padlock on his magic underwear and he's not allowed to do anything. But because this other guy's the quarterback, he can do whatever he wants and the honor code doesn't apply to him. So I can see where that would be a big problem too. I guess I don't have an issue, either way. I don't have an issue with this 20-year-old college student having a sexual relationship if it was consensual. I don't agree to non-consensual relationships of any kind, of any type, religious or otherwise. But I don't personally have a problem with a 20-year-old having a sexual relationship in college. But if BYU does, and it's in their honor code, and Retzlaff made the decision to enroll and play at BYU, then he has to know he's going to be held to the same standards as the average student walking across campus, right? So I don't have a problem with BYU enforcing their own rules. I also, I don't personally have a problem with what Retzlaff did, but I don't have an honor code. I do. I guess I do, but I don't. It only extends so far with that. Anyway, let's read some more of this article here. The BYU staff has been ramping up preparation to get the 3 backups ready. The woman alleged that Retzlaff raped, strangled, and bit her in November 2023. In a response to that lawsuit, a lawyer representing Retzlaff denied the allegations, but said that Retzlaff did have consensual sex with her. The response indicated Retzlaff and the woman traded lighthearted text messages for months after the encounter. So again, red flag. Does it mean it didn't happen? I don't know how I would act or react if I were in this woman's shoes. So I'm not coming out and accusing her of lying. But, you get raped and you continue to sort of flirt back and forth on text messages with the guy that raped you. It's a red flag. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it is a red flag to me. Both the complaint and the response agreed that Retzlaff and the woman connected through social media, as I met online, which led to her visiting Ratliff's apartments to play video games in November of 2023. And then it goes on to tell the story I already told, how the woman arrived with all of her friends. They then left, and it was just the 2 of them on the couch. They started kissing, watching a movie. Yeah. It goes on from there. Goes into some detail. A few days later, woman visited the hospital. The rape kit was performed. Pictures of her injuries were taken. Lawsuit says she was connected with Provo, Utah police, but did not initially give Retzlaff's name. So again, she refused to name who did it. So no criminal charges have ever been filed against Retzlaff. After the lawsuit was filed, BYU issued a statement. The university takes any allegation very seriously, following all processes and guidelines mandated by Title IX. Due to federal and university privacy laws, practices for students, the university will not be able to provide comment. Here's a question I could not find the answer to. And, when someone comes forward and alleges this kind of thing, their name is usually withheld for obvious reasons. I get that. Is this girl a student at BYU? Would be a question that I would have. Because if she is, she's bound by the same honor code rules. So is it possible something happened? She felt bad about it, like morally? Is it possible her parents found out? So I don't know. And so sort of instead of admitting, I had premarital sex, I'm talking about the girl now. Instead of admitting I had premarital sex, does she say she was raped to keep from getting kicked out of school or whatever else? I don't know. I have no idea. I've heard that mentioned. I've got no clue. It seems like a lot to make up just to keep from being suspended from BYU, but I don't know. Retzlaff, who's graduated, is expected to enter his name in a transfer portal in the coming days. He started 13 games for the Cougars in 2024, had an 11-2 record. He passed for 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So again, mentions him entering the portal. There is no portal window to enter right now. From what I could read in looking into this, it's because he's a graduate student. He doesn't have to wait on any official portal window. And even if I did understand the transfer rules for grad students in June, which I don't, even if I did, they might be different tomorrow or a week or a month from now. I think we all know the deal here. You can transfer whenever you want. If they tell you can't, you just file a lawsuit and then you can transfer anyway. So there's no point in getting all stuck in the weeds, I don't think, about the transfer portal and when he can transfer and should he be able to transfer. It doesn't really matter. These players have all the power right now because all they got to do is go to court. They win every single time. Anyway, so that's what happened. What do y'all think about this? The honor code at BYU. Do y'all want to look at the honor code? I don't know why you would. But maybe you do. I mean, what am I looking at here? Hold on. BYU honor code. Here we go. This is right from the BYU website, so I don't want anybody to say that's not true or I'm making this up or whatever. BYU honor code. All participants are required to adhere to the BYU Honor Code. BYU is sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Honor Code includes a few specific behavioral standards established by the church. Although certain behavioral standards are required, we emphasize that we welcome people of all faiths as well as those who are non-religious. So you don't have to be a Mormon to go there, but you basically have to play by the Mormon rules, is what they're telling you here. There's no requirement to participate in religious activities or to adhere to any particular set of beliefs. The full honor code can be found here. Here's some sort of the bullet point versions. Be honest. Well, I mean, I think that's something we can all kind of agree on. And generally speaking, it's a good idea to tell the truth. Live a chaste and virtuous life, including abstaining from any sexual relations outside of marriage between a man and a woman. Abstain from alcoholic beverages, tobacco, tea, coffee, vaping, marijuana, and other substance abuse. Most of these are pretty popular or pretty common religious beliefs. I mean, the alcohol thing is a little different from sort of denomination to denomination a little bit. It's never a good idea to smoke, religious or not. Tea and coffee, though, I can tell you right now, I couldn't do that. I can't abstain from coffee. There's no way. That would be it for me. I'd be permanently suspended from BYU. I'm not giving up my coffee. You have to follow other campus policies established by the church educational system, such as a dress and grooming standard and the student housing policy. So I know, like, you can't cohabitate. A man can't live with a woman or a girl can't live with a boy there, that kind of thing. See the dress and grooming principles and expectations. Y'all want to see that? What do they have? Let's see, what do they have to wear? The dress and grooming principles and expectations, blah, blah, blah. Represent the Savior, Jesus Christ, the church, and the church educational system. Preserve an inspiring environment without distraction or disruption, where covenants are kept in a spirit of unity so the Holy Ghost can teach truth. Promote modesty, cleanliness, neatness, and restraint in dress and grooming. Maintain an elevated standard distinctive to educational institutions of the Church of Jesus Christ. This is very vague language here for the dress and grooming policy. I mean, I think we all probably have an idea of what they would allow and not allow. Dress for men and women. Be modest in fit and style. Dressing in a way that would cover the temple garment is a good guideline. Dressing in a way that would cover the temple garment. I don't even know I don't know what any of this means. Whether or not one has been endowed, I don't know what that means. Accommodations may be made for athletic participation. Be neat and clean. Sloppy, overly casual, ragged, or extreme clothing is not acceptable. For your grooming, hair should be clean, neat, modest, and avoid extremes in styles and colors. Men's hair should be neatly trimmed. No long-haired hippies at BYU. Men should be clean shaven. Oh, what? No beards or mustaches at BYU? Come on, man. Listen, if you live your best life and in the end, you wind up at St. Peter's Gate or whatever it is, and they tell you, buddy, you did everything right. You did everything right. But you had a mustache, my guy. You're going to hell. Imagine. Didn't Jesus have a beard? Again, not a religious scholar. All I know is that Jesus was black. All right, appreciate you watching. Have a great day.